Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's your host, Belmont, and today we're going to be doing a special movie versus movie edition of Power Vacuum, where I pit two different versions of movies up against each other and see what they got right versus the adaptation versus what they got wrong, and or how different they are from each other. And today's Dune versus Dune. We're going to be doing the 1984 David Lynch Dune versus the 2020's Denis Villanueva Dune movies. And basically I'm going to be talking about what they missed out on. I'm not going to be talking about what they got right, because if you go back and read the book and then watch the movies, both of them got a lot of aspects right and some stuff wrong. I think Frank Herbert said it best, that after seeing David Lynch's movie, they took some liberties and there are a lot of inconsistencies, but you will feel like you have seen Dune after leaving the theater. And that applies to both of them. I haven't had a chance to watch the sci-fi series since it originally came out. I was going to include that in this, have like a Dune versus Dune versus Dune. But that'll be a new video, because I've ordered the series because I can't find anybody streaming it that I feel like watching it with. What I remember is everyone praised it because it was much more accurate than the 84 Dune, and I would like to compare it to the new one and see how it holds up. But that's on its way. I didn't feel like waiting for that because for some reason you can't get like instant shipping with it. It's everyone that has that available to purchase, it's like 4 to 10 days for shipping or some nonsense. So here we are comparing the movies, theatrical releases as it were, and there are going to be spoilers for the books and the movies, so you have been warned. Check out now if you care about that kind of thing. And I'm going to start with basically what both movies missed out on. The major plot points that they both have lacking in them. And we'll start with the ecological themes. In both versions, they do touch on the ecological themes about wanting to make Dune a green planet again, or to revitalize it. But they're literally like single lines of dialogue or like footnotes in the movie. Where in the book, it's brought up a lot, especially by like Paul and Chani. They have a much more heavy focus on, the environment and how to restore it and stuff like that. That isn't focused on in the movie and movies. And I'm not sure if it's because they just didn't want to add that in, or if it was, deemed too boring for cinema to just be like talking about rain and irrigation and plant growth and that kind of stuff. They also don't address the fact in the movies. I think in the new ones, in the first part one, you see some green plants in the study room before they're attacked by the Sardaukar. But they don't talk about it while they're there. They don't address the fact that in the southern hemisphere, the Fremen have actually managed to grow plants at all. Like neither of the movies really address the fact that there are green areas on Dune. Nobody goes there and nobody looks at it because they all just assume that the southern hemisphere is completely uninhabitable. So why would you waste your time looking for, a forest in the Sahara? You just wouldn't. And that's the basic principle. The other thing that both movies is missing is Paul and Chani's firstborn son, who is Leto Atreides II. The first Leto Atreides II. There's another Leto Atreides II further down the line. But both movies just completely leave this character out. And I think the reasoning is they didn't want to show the murder of a small child. Like, he's like only 1 or 2 when he's killed, and that's just something that not a lot of people care to put into a movie. I think the original movie also did it because of runtime, because there's just a massive time jump in that movie when you're watching it. They just straight up skip forward 4 years, and there's a time jump in Dune Part 2 as well. They just it's more broken up than the 1984 one, where the 1984 one is it's boom boom. It's like a exponential dialogue from the princess, just explaining what's happening. It takes like a total of 5 minutes, where the time jump in the new Dune is more of like a 20-minute sequence of events. And, you know, they just didn't want to put that in there. I think the new ones did it because they completely changed Chani's character, which I'll be talking about a little bit later in the video. So I think that's part of the reason why it wasn't in there. Another big thing that's missing from both movies is the weirding way and what it actually is. So in the original 84 Dune, they do have what's called the weirding modules, which is a sound-based weapon that Paul does teach the Fremen how to use. But in the novels, the weirding way is a special martial art form invented by the Bene Gesserit that is considered one of the highest forms of martial art. The story of Dune is basically talks about the three greatest warriors in the entire universe are the Sardaukar, the House Atreides warriors with Duncan Idaho and Gurney Halleck as their teachers, and the Fremen. So, you know, because a lot of people complain online, like, why do the Sardaukar seem to suck when they're supposed to be the most feared people in the universe? But the most feared people in the universe are only feared when they're not up against the other greatest warriors in the universe. It'd be like a Spartan from the east side of town fighting a Spartan from the west side of town. You know, like they're both equally aggressive and deadly. Just no one's going to make those comparisons because they're on the same footing, basically. But the weirding way, well, a little brief explanation. Bene Gesserits in the books, I don't think they explain this in the movies really, but in the books are said to be able to control every fiber of their being, even down to a the exact muscle fibers and cells of their body. This allows them to be, faster, stronger, smarter than almost anybody in the universe. It's why they have maneuvered and manipulated people for 2,000 freaking years in the books. And they mention it in the movie. They just say 90 generations, which they say in the book too. But that's roughly, depending on how you span out a generation, that's about 2,000 something years that these women, these witches, have been in control of everyone. And it's because they are smarter and stronger and faster and more capable than everyone. So they invented a martial art, which the Fremen refer to as the weirding way. And in the book, Paul and Jessica teach the Fremen how to use the weirding way, how to tap into the fibers of their being and become the most fearsome warriors in the entire galaxy, universe. They say universe, but I don't know if this series ever actually really takes place outside of one galaxy. I'd have to go back and I'd probably have to read beyond the first 3 Dune books to really get that, which I haven't done, admittedly. I think the first 3 are where the story's at its peak. I don't really care about the giant sandworm emperor crap. But yeah, the weirding way was left out of both the movies for some reason, in the essence of what it actually is. Like in the new ones, they're just like, oh, the Fremen are just awesome as is, which I guess was Denise's way of being like, yeah, that's it. That's why they're so feared and misunderstood. And it's like, nah, they were strong, but then when they got taught by Paul, they became like a force of nature, something to be reckoned with. All right. And then I think the final thing I'm going to talk about that both movies completely miss out on is Hawat, which is the mentat for the Atreides that is taken by the Harkonnens after their mentat dies from Leto poisoning the room with the gas toot that Yui gave him. And effectively, the character has a massive arcing plot in the book. And I guess it was like something they didn't want to put in either of the movies because it definitely takes away from the primary action, and neither of the movies actually explain the internal struggle between the Harkonnens and the Emperor, because the Harkonnens, obviously, controlling the spice, you control the universe, but they never really address the fact that the Harkonnens want to be the seat of power in the universe as well. They want to, the Baron absolutely wants to be the Emperor. Who doesn't? They want to control everything. And that power struggle is mostly facilitated by Hawat, who does a lot of backseating and planning. So effectively what happens to him is he's poisoned by Baron Harkonnen after the Harkonnens lose their Mentat, and he is told that he will be given the antidote periodically as long as he does what they say. And for the most part, he plays like the double agent role, where he does what they say, but he's working behind the scenes to bring them down. He's like sowing doubt in like a lot of what they do. He's sowing doubt in their belief in the Emperor. And he ultimately dies when he was commanded to kill Paul and chose to succumb to the poison instead of adhering to the Harkonnens' will. And I just thought it was interesting that both movies just completely like let the character out. They show him briefly in the 84 one where he's like got to milk a cat is how he gets his antidote, but they never show his plans or anything. He's just kind of like there in the background in a couple of scenes, and that was it. They just completely let him out. So now let's get on to 1984 Dune and what they left out. Like I said, one of the big things was they replaced the weirding way with the weirding modules, and I don't know why they even did that or what the point was. Like there's a lot of focus on the weirding modules. Like they show them being destroyed. They show like this like fake blueprint of how they're made, which is complete nonsense. If you like pause and look at it, you're like, this doesn't even make sense from like an electronic standpoint when you're looking at like wire diagrams. It's just sci-fi mumbo jumbo. And I guess it was Lynch's way of being like, well, he's got to teach them something, so we're gonna make it this crazy weapon. But like giving them a projectile weapon is antithetical to what Dune is about. Everyone in the Dune universe uses swords and hand-to-hand combat because of shields, which render high velocity projectiles useless. This effectively, it was a brilliant way that Frank Herbert was like, well, why doesn't everybody just shoot each other, right? Because that's where modern warfare was. That's where warfare was when he wrote the books. And he's like, well, what if there was this like device that made it to where guns were worthless, and so we had to all go back to sword fights because guns don't do anything. And it was a brilliant maneuver on his part to be like, hey, this is the world. Swords are the way they went back to the old school fighting. That's why there's great warriors now and there's not great warriors, because almost anyone can shoot, and with a little bit of training everyone can be good at it. But hand-to-hand combat and melee combat, you gotta train hard to be good at it. And the weirding modules just kind of completely nullify that. It doesn't make the Fremen seem like a feared force for being fearsome warriors. It just is like, oh, they've got magic guns that shoot through shields. It's like, oh, whoa. Okay. Yeah, I didn't really like that. Don't have much say in it, though. It's done is done. And then the other major plot point that is completely missing from the 84 Dune that I haven't already addressed is Jamis and Jamis's wife. Jamis is a Fremen warrior that refuses to accept Paul and Jessica, so he challenges Jessica to a duel, and Paul steps in like, no, you're going to fight me. And Paul kills Jamis in knife combat. This is kind of important to the story because it's what lets a lot of the Fremen accept Paul, because he has proven himself to be a warrior, and that's very important to them. And the Jamisa's wife thing, I think both the movies left out because it's just kind of awkward. So after Paul kills Jamis, he is effectively given his wife. It's the kind of like an ancient warrior thing where you take care of what you kill or you keep what you kill. And it's like kind of awkward to be like, hey, this woman is, your possession now. And it's just a weird little part of the book. The character, from what I can tell in both movies, is just completely erased. And probably for the better, because I don't know how you would address being like, hey, this guy kind of owns this person now, and he's responsible for her, even though he's never met her. He doesn't know her, and he didn't even know she existed when the knife fight happened. It wasn't like he was like, oh yeah, by the way, if I die, you gotta take care of my wife. So that's a thing. But leaving out the duel, I thought was weird because the scene is kind of still there where they discover that Jessica has the weirding way. In the original 84, they just leave the knife fight completely out of it. And they even have Chani being like, I wouldn't have let you hurt anybody. You took the hard way up. Follow me. I'll show you the easy way down. That's in the books and both movies. But the fact that that scene kind of revolves around the knife fight and they just omitted it. Also, I think made the knife fight at the end of the first movie, the 84 movie, a little less impactful because you don't realize that Paul's supposed to be a good knife fighter, which, like, he just is in the movie at the end. They don't explain it. I guess they could get away with saying, he's the Kwisatz Haderach, so he can see his opponent's moves. But, like, it's kind of weird that they just omitted that completely with everything else that they seem to be focused on getting right. As for the 2020 Dune movies, there's actually more things they omit, and I guess that's because the Villanueva has said that he liked to show things more than he liked to tell them, and some of the parts he took out are probably because they're dialogue heavy. And a major one is the Spacing Guild. So, like in the 84 one, they show how the Spacing Guild is the one that sets everything in motion to eliminate Paul Atreides and bring down the House Atreides. Where in the 2020's Dune, they're completely absent. Like, there is no Spacing Guild. There are no navigators. The travel just happens. They just get there. They don't show any of the traveling between planets. It's just blip, blip. We're there. And I think it's kind of a glaring omission. I don't know why he did that. I don't know if there's a special edition, extra long cut that explains why, or that maybe they're added in. I'm pretty sure the only deleted scenes that I'm aware of involve the Emperor's Mentat that we know of. But yeah, the Spacing Guild just completely absent. The internal monologues in the new Dunes are completely absent. The original 84 one had them. They were kind of annoying because they were like, whispery, why is he doing that? That was really obnoxious, but it was, the best way they could convey back then that they were thinking and not speaking, despite the fact that, the words were happening without their mouth moving. Little minor detail, but whatever. And internal dialogue is probably about 15% of the Dune book, maybe more. I'd have to actually really focus on it, which it's kind of hard to do when you're reading Dune. It's kind of enthralling, but it is a heavy part of the actual story. Like, every character has thoughts, and like, usually it's used to express how their inner thoughts don't match their outer projections. Like, Duke Leto Atreides in the book is always calm and cool and collected, but then his thoughts are like frantic and wild sometimes. and that's something that they don't convey in it. And the other thing that's missing from the 2020 Dunes, moving on now, is Alia. Her plot is missing, and it was a major change. One of the major changes I didn't like. In the original, they do show Alia killing the Baron Harkonnen. Uh, she does poison. She uses a poison needle on him, and then they have a brief shot, which I always found funny because it's just a picture of this child like reveling, holding a knife on a combat field, and it's like 2 seconds long, and I never understood it until I read the books, because after she kills Baron Harkonnen, she goes into the battlefield where she starts killing Harkonnens and Sardaukars with a knife, and it earns her the name Saint Alia of the Blade. I think I'm getting that right. Saint Alia of the Knife. Shit. Yeah. I'm in the process of rereading Dune, but I'm not near the end. But she becomes well known for being, a person, even as a child, killing people with a knife on the battlefield, which is unheard of. But one of the Reverend Mothers said she's a child in appearance only, because she was born with all the knowledge of the Bene Gesserit. So she's effectively like a grown person trapped in a child's body her whole life. And they just completely excise her from the new Dune movie. She's just in utero the entire time, and I think it takes away from her character. I think having Paul kill the Baron Harkonnen takes away from it. It's it's a creative decision, and it's one I think that kind of changes the pacing and character a lot of Paul and of the story. It also takes away who Alia will be in the future, because the Fremen aren't going to view her as this great warrior now, or this capable being. I don't know how they're going to address that. And one of the biggest changes is the absolute character assassination of Chani. Now, I get that they wanted to have a dissenting voice in this, but they could have made it anyone else, because having Chani do it in the new 2020 Dune is just the antithesis of her character. Like, Chani is with Paul 100% of the way for everything. Like, she is just on his side. She is his backup, his main squeeze, his support. She is like the pillar to his support. And in the new one, she's just kind of got this like sour look on her face the whole time, especially in part 2. And she's just a non-believer, and she's the dissenting voice, and they could have made it any other character. I don't know why they chose Chani, or why Denise chose Chani to make the dissenting voice, but it ruins her character, and I don't know how they're going to handle this moving on, unless like there's some way he's just like, oh, she's already pregnant, and like maybe she'll come back to be with Paul because of that. But like at the end of the movie, which mad spoilers by the way, she fucking leaves. Like she just leaves, and Paul just looks at her and lets her leave. And I think they throw in like a line like, oh, she'll come around. And it's like, yeah, this whole we can fix massive plot points with a single line of dialogue shit needs to end, okay? This isn't a Rian Johnson movie, right? This isn't a J.J. Abrams movie. This is fucking hard sci-fi. It needs to be true to the characters, if not anything else. And like, oh man, one of the things that annoyed me was when I saw it in theaters, you could hear the audible gasp from all the young women when he was like, I'm going to take your daughter. When Paul was talking to the Emperor, he's like, I'm going to take your daughter as my wife. They're all like, oh, what? Oh, my God. And I just wanted to shout, go read a fucking book, people. Like, you haven't read the books, clearly. I know you haven't, because you're young women and Dune isn't really for you. I'm not saying it's not for women, but, young women in the modern era are very, very unlikely to read a hard sci-fi novel like Dune. But Chani was understanding of Paul, wanted him to pursue the relationship, knew that it was good for the universe, and if memory serves me correct, she's the one in the book who's like, isn't it time you had a child with this woman? You know, for the sake of the universe, you need to have an heir to the throne. And it's like, getting rid of her character that way, really, I don't know what they're going to do. It's just, it changes the story. It changes how the plot's going to move. It changes everything about her. And it was a very strange decision in my mind. And I was like, I don't see what the point of this is. And I really don't know where you're going. And I hope you're going to have to do some hard course correcting in the first like 10 to 15 minutes of Dune Messiah if you're going to explain this shit. But hey, it was his decision. And I think it was a pretty poor one as far as the lore is concerned and how the story is supposed to move forward. Because you're changing a vital aspect of her character, making her a dissenter and somebody that doesn't believe in Paul. And then the last part that I'm going to complain about is actually just kind of a nitpick on my part. It's not really anything. I mean, I guess it is part of the books, but it's a decision that Denise made for the new movies, especially in part 2, to have all this fucking mouth breathing. Like, there are just scenes where you're watching it and the only audio is and I'm like, dude, stop. Dude, the Fremen were well trained, okay? They breathe in through their mouth and out through their nose to capture all their moisture. Having this heavy breathing going on in the background, or like not even the background, overlaid over the scene, is just ridiculous and obnoxious. One, they Fremen wouldn't breathe like that, especially Chani, who grew up in the desert. They have her doing it. Like, you can get away with being like, okay, Paul's breathing heavy and out of his mouth because he still hasn't quite adapted to the desert and the ways of the Fremen. But when Chani starts doing it, I'm like, what is this? This is annoying me. I'm getting like actively angry at this shit. Like, they wouldn't be doing this. And I don't know if it was it was a creative choice. I just don't understand why you would do it. I guess maybe because he didn't explain. I don't think he explains the circular breathing in the new movies. They explain it once in the 84 Dune. Just, you breathe in through your mouth and out through your nose. It collects the water. They explain how the still suits work. Where the still suits, I think, are in like a holovid in the new one, but they don't detail explain it, and they don't have the Fremen explain it that well. But the fact that they're just running around breathing out their mouth drove me bonkers for part of it. I was like, holy crap, stop it. Just stop. I was like, oh, God. And it's one of the things that makes me, as hokey and cheesy and ridiculous as 1984 Dune is, it's a little bit more accurate to the book in that respect because it doesn't have as many obnoxious things in it. Alia's there. Chani's, on his side the whole time. Just the lack of stuff in both movies, and then the lack of stuff in the new one because, Villanueva wanted to show, not tell, and all the telling that got cut out was, stuff that happens in the book where people explain things in depth, in detail. And I get it, but I really wish we could find like the raw footage of the original Dune and go back and like, put new age special effects on it so it didn't look so cheesy and hokey and ridiculous. Because the shield scene's terrible. Oh man, the fight with Gurney is like one of the hardest scenes to watch. And then like Duncan Idaho's death in 84, when I was a kid, I was like, what even happened? What happened? I didn't really understand what was happening because they had that effect over him, so you couldn't see like the bore drill go through and like penetrate him. Where Duncan Idaho's death in the new one was just like, hey, let's show how badass Jason Momoa is. Which I'm fine with. That's pretty cool. Like that scene was kind of awesome. And I love the salute, blade to the heart, blade to the mind. The But him just being like, yep, hold on, I gotta kill some elite warriors. I'm the greatest warrior in the freaking universe, by the way. Let me take down these Emperor's elite by myself. 6v1. Uh, Maybe more than that. I didn't count how many there were. He schools them though, and then pulls a sword out of his own chest to kill a couple more. Uh, it was a cool scene. It was a better death than the boar drill in the original, where it was just like, what's happening? Oh, he's wearing a shield, but he dies. What was that? But yeah, that's Dune versus Dune. Both movies got some things right. Both movies got some things wrong. I would say the new ones got more right, but also got more wrong, where the old one got less right, but less wrong. And both, they're both pretty much on equal footing. The new one is definitely much better and easier to watch as far as visual goes, and like the action helps you not realize how long the movie is. I didn't even, well, the old one does too though, because I didn't realize the old one was over 2 hours long, because it doesn't feel like 2 hours. The only time it's kind of slow is in the beginning, when the internal dialogue is real heavy. Like every other line is spoken, then thought, then spoken, then thought. Where once it gets into the movie, there's more voiceover, but it's like voiceover of a scene. And I don't know why there's almost no... Is there any internal dialogue in the new ones? I don't think there really is. And if there is, it's not like voiceover dialogue. It cuts away, so they could be talking. You're not sure. Because I think Jessica has some thought patterns in a little bit, but they cut away from her when she's doing it, so she could be telling it to someone. Because they don't do that weird whispery shit. But there you go. That's my take on the two new Dune movies and how they compare. Well, versus the original. And like I said, I'm going to be updating. Well, not updating. I'll be doing another video once I watch the sci-fi miniseries. And I will be comparing how that holds up versus the two Dune movies. Because like I said, I remember it's highly praised for being much more accurate and more true to the story. But that's my video for today. Belmont out.